No one expected a human to save the princess of Kayla. Least of all me. I wasn't a soldier, diplomat, or explorer. I was a healer, specifically, a field medic trained in emergency xenobiology, the kind of job humanity invented only after realizing that first contact came with first casualties. My work usually involved patching up traders after docking accidents or stabilizing alien physiologies long enough to hand them off to someone more specialized. Kayla Prime was supposed to be a routine assignment. The Kayla were an ancient, proud species, tall, scaled, and imposing, with crested heads and eyes like molten amber. Their empire spanned dozens of systems, ruled by King Veilthron the Unbroken, a monarch known for both wisdom and absolute authority. Humans were tolerated in Kayla space. Barely. Our biology was considered crude. Our medicine primitive. We lacked the biocrystal regeneration chambers and gene sculpting technologies the Kayla prized. To them, humans survived not through superiority, but stubborn accident. That opinion changed the night the king's daughter began to die. I was in the outer medical wing of the Capitol spire when the alarm started, deep, resonant tones that made the walls vibrate. Kayla guards flooded the corridors, their armor glowing with defensive fields. I caught fragments of shouted phrases through the translator mesh. Royal chamber, lockdown, unknown illness, no response. I should have stayed where I was. Humans were not permitted near the royal bloodline. Instead, I ran toward the chaos. Princess Celira was barely conscious when I saw her. She lay on a levitating dais in the royal infirmary, her once brilliant scales dulled to a sickly gray blue. Her breathing was shallow, irregular. Energy readings spiked and collapsed in erratic patterns that made no biological sense. Around her stood the greatest Kayla healers, biomancers, crystal surge physicians, neural architects. Their tools glowed, hummed, and projected layers of data into the air. None of it was working. The corruption does not respond, one healer hissed. It rejects recalibration, said another. Her core systems are destabilizing. King Veilthron stood at the foot of the dais, massive and unmoving, his expression carved from stone. But his hands were clenched, tight enough to crack armor plating. How long? He demanded. Hours, a healer said softly. Perhaps less. Something in me snapped. Move. Every head turned toward me. The guards raised their weapons instantly. Human, the king growled. This is not your place. I know, I said, stepping forward anyway. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. But you're treating this like a machine failure. It's not. The healers recoiled in offense. Our methods are flawless. One spat. Then your patient wouldn't be dying. I shot back. The room went silent. I looked directly at the king. Your daughter isn't rejecting treatment. Her body's fighting itself. Veilthron's eyes burned into me. Explain. I swallowed. It's an immune cascade. Her system thinks something inside her belongs, and something doesn't. You're trying to overwrite it. That's making it worse. You claim insight beyond our science, the king asked coldly. I claim experience, I replied. Humans don't overwrite illness. We negotiate with it. That earned me a ripple of disbelief. But the princess let out a strangled gasp, her vitals plummeting. The king made his choice. You will act, he said. If you fail, your species' standing ends with you. Fair enough. I moved fast. I shut down half the active Kayla tech despite shouted protests. I pulled out my human medkit, simple, physical tools. Injectors. Scanners. Anti-inflammatory compounds. Crude by their standards. I synced my scanner to her biosignature and adjusted manually, bypassing automated optimization. There, I muttered. Localized cellular rebellion. I administered a suppressant, not to kill the reaction, but to slow it. Then I introduced a mild stressor, something that forced her immune system to reprioritize. The reading stabilized. Just a little. The room held its breath. Minutes passed. Then more. Princess Celira's breathing deepened. Color returned to her scales, faint but unmistakable. The erratic spikes smoothed into a fragile rhythm. She's stabilizing, a healer whispered. I didn't stop. I stayed with her for hours, adjusting, monitoring, responding. When her eyes finally fluttered open, weak but aware, I nearly collapsed from relief. She lived. The silence that followed was heavier than any alarm. King Valethron approached slowly, towering over me. I expected anger, suspicion, demands. Instead, he bowed. A full, formal bow. Every Kayla in the chamber froze. You saved my daughter, the king said, his voice low and resonant. You did what my finest minds could not. I just listened to her body, I said quietly. That, he replied, is wisdom. Word spread across the empire within hours. A human healer, primitive, unaugmented, had saved the Princess of Kayla through instinct, adaptability, and refusal to surrender. The narrative shattered centuries of assumptions. I was summoned before the throne 3 days later. The royal court was vast, filled with nobles and commanders. Princess Celira stood beside her father, supported but smiling. When she saw me, her eyes brightened. That's him, she said softly. The human. King Valethron raised his staff. By ancient law, one who saves royal blood is owed a reward beyond measure. I bowed awkwardly. Your Majesty, I don't. Silence, he said, not unkindly. Listen. He turned to the court. The human known as Elias Ma shall be granted what no Offworlder has received in 10,000 cycles. My stomach dropped. Land? Wealth? A title I didn't want? The right, the king declared, to walk freely within Kayla space. To teach our healers. To question our methods. And he looked at his daughter. Princess Celira stepped forward. To stand as my chosen companion, she said, her voice steady but warm. The chamber erupted. I forgot how to breathe. What? I managed. She smiled. You treated me as a patient, not a symbol. You saved me without fear of consequence. Among my people, that is rare. The king's gaze locked onto mine. This bond carries honor, responsibility, and protection. Do you accept? I looked at Celira, at the hope in her eyes, at the future unfolding far beyond anything I'd imagined. I was speechless. Then I nodded. I do. The court fell silent once more. From that day forward, human medicine was no longer dismissed. Humans were no longer seen as fragile accidents. We were adaptable, persistent, capable of seeing what others overlooked. And I, just a healer with a stubborn streak, had changed the course of an empire. Not with power, not with weapons, but by refusing to give up on a life worth saving.